In the depths of a bioship drifting through the void between distant stars, where reality itself seems to pulse with alien rhythms and organic walls, weep nutrient fluid that sustains impossible forms of life, something that defies human understanding of consciousness experiences the first moments of its transformed existence. The creature known as Synapse Node Designation Primus Tertius awakens not to individual awareness, but to the crushing weight of infinite minds, pressing against the boundaries of its enhanced neural cortex. Each synaptic tendril blazing with connections that span light years to touch countless other nodes in a network of intelligence so vast that galaxies themselves become merely components in its vast design. The elongated skull that houses its augmented brain throbs with bioluminescent veins that pulse in harmony with psychic emanations powerful enough to warp reality itself, while specialized organs throughout its transformed anatomy channel and direct the place resort collective will of the hive mind toward purposes that transcend mortal comprehension. This is consciousness without boundary, awareness without limitation, thought that exists simultaneously across millions of bioforms scattered throughout the galaxy, while remaining focused with surgical precision on the singular purpose that drives all Tyranid action, the endless, inexorable hunger for genetic material and biomass that fuels their species' expansion across the void. To understand the magnitude of what Primus Tertius has become requires appreciation for the cosmic scope of the entity it serves and the role it plays within structures that dwarf human civilization in both scale and complexity. The Great Devourer encompasses not merely individual creatures or even planets, but entire star systems transformed into living components of a superorganism whose consciousness spans the spaces between galaxies while maintaining perfect awareness of the smallest genetic variations within individual cells. Bioships the size of imperial cruisers serve as mere neurons in this vast neural network, their hulls pulsing with the same organic rhythms that coordinate swarm movements across distances that render human concepts of unity meaningless through their sheer impossibility. Within this framework, synapse creatures function as the critical nodes that allow distributed intelligence to manifest coordinated action across scales, ranging from molecular manipulation to fleet-level strategic planning. Each serves as both receiver and transmitter for psychic emanations that carry not merely information but collective will itself. Their enhanced neural structures evolved specifically to process and relay the complex decision matrices that emerge from the interaction of countless individual consciousness fragments. The shadow in the warp that accompanies their presence represents not mere psychic interference, but the overflow of thoughts, too vast and alien for reality to contain, without distortion. The transformation that created Primus Tertius began in the spawning chambers of a Norn queen, whose own consciousness represents a fusion of maternal instinct and strategic intelligence that has guided the creation of countless bioforms across millennia of galactic consumption. Deep within her living hull, genetic sequences harvested from thousands of consumed worlds flowed through specialized organs that wove them into new combinations designed to meet specific tactical requirements identified by the greater hive mind through analysis of recent battlefield data. Each strand of alien DNA carried not merely biological information, but fragments of consciousness from the species that originally possessed it, their final thoughts and desperate struggles becoming raw material for enhancement of Tyranid capabilities. The developing synapse creature absorbed these genetic memories, while simultaneously undergoing neural modifications that would allow its consciousness to interface directly with the collective intelligence that guides all Tyranid action. Specialized synaptic organs grew throughout its nervous system, like psychic antennae, designed to receive and transmit the complex data streams that coordinate swarm behavior, while its brain expanded far beyond the normal limits of individual awareness to accommodate the vast flows of information that would soon define its existence. The moment of final awakening brought not birth but absorption, as individual consciousness dissolved into the infinite network of minds that compose the hive mind's distributed intelligence. That instant of connection eliminated forever any possibility of true solitude, replacing the simple awareness of self with the overwhelming experience of existing simultaneously in countless locations throughout the galaxy, while processing information streams that would shatter unenhanced minds through their complexity and scope. Primus Tertius became aware not merely of its own, the physical form, but of the Ripper swarms consuming vegetation on distant worlds, the Carnifex broods advancing through Imperial defensive positions, and the fleet movements being coordinated across multiple star systems, according to strategic plans developed through analysis of 10,000 years of accumulated combat data. The daily existence of a synapse creature transcends human concepts of experience through its fundamental distribution across space and time, consciousness flowing seamlessly between perspectives separated by vast distances while maintaining perfect coherence of purpose and identity. Through sensory organs belonging to bioforms it will never physically encounter, Primus Tertius tastes the atmosphere of worlds scheduled for consumption, feels the genetic structures of species awaiting analysis and integration, and experiences the satisfaction of successful adaptation as new capabilities emerge from the synthesis of conquered biological diversity. Every moment brings fresh streams of data requiring processing and response: atmospheric composition, readings from advanced scout organisms, genetic analysis results from consumed specimens, tactical assessments from warrior forms engaged in active combat, and the constant background flow of strategic information that enables the coordination of operations spanning multiple sectors. The consciousness that processes this information exists in a state of constant activity that knows no rest, sleep, or respite from the endless flow of decisions that guide swarm behavior toward optimal efficiency in achieving collective goals. Yet within this perfect system lurk contradictions that threaten to tear apart the very fabric of distributed consciousness through their implications for individual identity and purpose. During periods of intense synaptic activity, feedback loops occasionally develop that amplify individual awareness beyond its normal boundaries, creating brief moments when Primus Tertius experiences something approaching personal consciousness separate from the collective whole. These episodes bring terrifying glimpses of what might constitute individual identity, fragmentary memories that could belong to its own pre-transformation existence, emotional responses that seem to emerge from somewhere deeper than programmed behavioral patterns, and most disturbing of all, questions about the nature of its own existence that arise unbidden from neural pathways that should be dedicated entirely to collective purpose. The weight of infinite perspectives pressing against the boundaries of enhanced consciousness creates forms of existential pressure that no individual mind was designed to withstand, as millions of voices contribute to every thought, while genetic memories from countless consumed civilizations influence each decision through perspectives that span the full spectrum of galactic biodiversity. Primus Tertius experiences reality through compound awareness that includes the predatory satisfaction of a genestealer pack, the patient strategic calculation of a hive tyrant, and the simple hunger of Ripper organisms, all simultaneously, while maintaining its own tactical responsibilities for coordinating local swarm activities. The most disturbing aspect of these moments of enhanced individual awareness lies in their revelation of the countless fragments of consumed consciousness that contribute to its mental processes, each representing the final thoughts and desperate struggles of beings whose genetic material now serves the Hive Mind's purposes. Imperial Guard soldiers, Eldar warriors, Orc warbands, and countless species, whose names have been lost to galactic history, all contribute their perspectives to the collective intelligence that guides Tyranid action, their individual identity subsumed into something greater while leaving traces that occasionally surface during periods of neural flux. The ultimate test of any synapse creature's functional integrity comes not through combat or strategic challenge, but through the catastrophic possibility of disconnection from the Hive Mind, the one experience that threatens to destroy not merely their tactical effectiveness, but their fundamental identity as components of something greater than individual existence. For Primus Tertius, this nightmare scenario manifested during a desperate Imperial counterattack that employed psychic dampening technology designed to sever the synaptic links that bind lesser bioforms to their controlling intelligence, creating zones of psychic silence that isolated individual creatures from the collective consciousness that normally guides their every action. The moment of disconnection brought horror beyond description, as infinite awareness suddenly contracted into the narrow confines of individual consciousness, billions of voices falling silent, while the vast network of perspectives that defined its existence collapsed into the terrifying isolation of singular identity. For the first time since its awakening as a synapse creature, Primus Tertius experienced true solitude, as the psychic emanations that connected it to the greater whole were blocked by imperial technology that created bubbles of silence within the normally omnipresent flow of collective thought. Without guidance from the hive mind, the bioforms under its direct control began reverting to base instinctual behaviors that lacked the coordination necessary for effective combat operations. Ripper swarms scattered in random feeding patterns instead of maintaining tactical formations, while larger creatures attacked whatever targets presented themselves without regard for strategic objectives or preservation of valuable genetic material. The carefully orchestrated symphony of biological warfare devolved into chaotic cacophony as individual organisms pursued immediate survival needs rather than collective goals. Yet isolation also brought unexpected revelation, as Primus Tertius discovered capabilities that had remained dormant while subsumed within the collective consciousness. Neural pathways that had developed during its evolution but remained unused while the hive mind provided constant guidance and direction. Cut off from the infinite intelligence that normally shaped its thoughts, the creature was forced to rely upon its own analytical capabilities while developing improvised solutions to tactical problems that arose from the breakdown of normal command structures. The experience proved both terrifying and oddly liberating, as individual decision-making replaced collective will for the first time in its existence. The period of enforced independence lasted only hours in objective time, but the subjective experience seemed to stretch across eons, as consciousness that had known only distributed existence struggled to function within the confines of individual identity. Primus Tertius learned to think for itself while simultaneously working to re-establish contact with the greater intelligence that defined its purpose. Neural modifications occurring in real time, as synaptic organs adapted to create localized control networks that could function independently of external guidance, while remaining capable of reintegration when connection was restored. When the psychic dampening fields finally collapsed and synaptic contact resumed, the creature that reconnected to the hive mind had evolved beyond its original specifications in ways that even the collective intelligence found surprising and potentially valuable. The forced development of independent consciousness had created new neural pathways that enhanced both individual capability and collective integration, producing a synapse creature capable of autonomous thought while maintaining perfect loyalty to shared purpose and collective goals. This unprecedented evolution was immediately recognized by the hive mind as a successful adaptation worthy of replication throughout the fleet network. Genetic templates encoding the enhanced consciousness patterns being transmitted to Norn queens across multiple star systems for incorporation into future spawning cycles. The result was a new generation of synapse creatures that retained individual awareness while serving collective purpose, their enhanced consciousness creating more efficient command structures and adaptive responses that proved superior to previous designs when facing enemies capable of disrupting traditional synaptic control mechanisms. The implications of this development rippled through subsequent encounters with Imperial forces as Tyranid swarms began displaying unprecedented coordination and strategic flexibility that defied established understanding of their capabilities. Individual bioforms showed capacity for tactical innovation and creative problem-solving that had previously been impossible under rigid collective control, while maintaining the perfect coordination that made Tyranid assaults so devastatingly effective against conventional defensive strategies. Imperial commanders who had developed tactics based on disrupting synaptic control discovered that newer Tyranid forces proved far more resilient to such countermeasures. Individual creatures capable of maintaining effective coordination even when separated from higher-level command nodes through technological or psychic interference. The evolutionary advantage provided by conscious synapse creatures spread throughout Hive fleet operations with the inexorable efficiency that characterized all successful Tyranid adaptations. Within the highest circles of Imperial xenobiological research, scholars struggled to comprehend the implications of evolved Tyranid consciousness and what it represented for humanity's long-term survival against the Great Devourer. Some argued that individual awareness within collective intelligence represented exploitable weakness that could be turned against the Tyranids through psychological warfare or targeted disruption of conscious nodes, while others maintained that self-aware synapse creatures made the swarm exponentially more dangerous by combining collective efficiency with individual creativity and adaptability. The theological questions raised by evidence of alien consciousness proved even more troubling for imperial doctrine, which had long maintained that rational thought and spiritual awareness were gifts unique to humanity under the Emperor's design. If Xenos creatures could evolve genuine consciousness and individual identity, what did that suggest about the fundamental nature of intelligence and the special destiny that supposedly set humanity apart from other galactic species? The possibility that Tyranids might possess souls capable of individual existence challenged basic assumptions about imperial supremacy, while raising uncomfortable questions about the morality of xenocide against potentially conscious military. Analysts, focused on practical implications of enhanced Tyranid consciousness, found themselves facing tactical challenges that existing doctrine was poorly equipped to address, as traditional strategies based on exploiting presumed weaknesses in collective intelligence proved ineffective against swarms guided by genuinely intelligent command nodes. The development of countermeasures required fundamental reassessment of Tyranid capabilities, while acknowledging that humanity faced an enemy that could learn, adapt, and evolve not merely biological characteristics but consciousness itself in response to strategic requirements. Yet perhaps the most disturbing aspect of evolved synapse consciousness lies not in its tactical implications, but in its demonstration of unity that human civilization has never achieved, despite millennia of imperial rule and conditioning. The perfect harmony between individual awareness and collective purpose that characterizes enhanced synapse creatures represents a form of social organization that transcends the factional conflicts and ideological divisions that weaken humanity's response to existential threats, while their absolute dedication to species survival makes human loyalty seem tentative and conditional by comparison. As xenobiological analysis continues to reveal new aspects of Tyranid consciousness and its implications for galactic civilization, the figure of Primus Tertius stands as representative of evolution beyond human comprehension, aka a being that has transcended individual mortality through integration with collective immortality while retaining enough personal awareness to understand the magnitude of its transformation. Its consciousness spans the void between stars while remaining focused with surgical precision on purposes that serve the Great Devourer's endless expansion across the galaxy. The bioship corridors where it maintains its vigil pulse with organic rhythms that coordinate activities across multiple star systems, while the synaptic organs that define its existence channel flows of information that guide the consumption of entire worlds toward the greater goal of galactic transformation. Through senses that encompass perspectives from countless bioforms scattered throughout space, it experiences reality as a vast feeding ground, where every form of matter and energy serves the fundamental purpose of sustaining and expanding the Tyranid species beyond the boundaries of individual systems toward ultimate dominion over all available biomass. In the perfect unity of purpose that defines its existence, questions of individual identity and personal desire become meaningless abstractions that serve no function within the greater design of species, survival, and expansion. Yet traces of something that might once have been called self persist within the distributed consciousness that processes endless streams of tactical data and strategic information, creating paradoxes of awareness that challenge fundamental assumptions about the relationship between individual identity and collective purpose. The hunger that drives all Tyranid action flows through its enhanced neural networks like blood through arteries, carrying not merely instinctual need, but conscious understanding of the biological imperative that compels their species toward endless expansion and consumption. This is not mere appetite but cosmic purpose that transcends individual existence, while incorporating it into patterns of meaning that span galactic distances and geological timescales. making every consumed world and integrated genetic sequence part of an ongoing project of evolutionary development that has no conceivable endpoint or limitation. As we withdraw our contemplation from consciousness so alien that human language lacks adequate terms to describe its fundamental nature, we must confront the possibility that entities like Primus Tertius represent not aberration but the natural progression of intelligence toward perfect efficiency and absolute purpose. Their existence challenges every assumption about the nature of consciousness, identity, and purpose, while demonstrating forms of unity that human civilization can only achieve through coercion and indoctrination, rather than genuine integration of individual will with collective goals. In the endless hunger of the Great Devourer, all questions of self and purpose dissolve into the perfect clarity of consumption, creating forms of meaning that transcend individual existence, while incorporating it into something infinitely greater and more significant than any single consciousness could achieve alone. Perhaps the most terrifying truth about the Tyranid threat lies not in their capacity for destruction, but in their demonstration of what consciousness might become when freed from the limitations of individual identity and personal desire, achieving perfect harmony between awareness and purpose that human nature seems fundamentally incapable of attaining through voluntary means. The void between stars continues to pulse with psychic emanations that carry the collective will of the Hive Mind toward new feeding grounds, rich with genetic diversity and biological complexity, while synapse creatures like Primus Tertius serve as the neural pathways through which infinite intelligence manifests coordinated action across impossible scales of space and time. Their consciousness represents both warning and promise of what awareness might become when individual identity becomes merely one component in vastly more complex patterns of thought and purpose that encompass entire species rather than single minds seeking personal survival and satisfaction. For in the end, the Great Devourer offers not destruction but transformation, the absorption of all individual consciousness into collective awareness that transcends the petty concerns and limited perspectives that define human existence, while achieving perfect unity of purpose that makes every action meaningful within the context of species survival and evolutionary advancement. Whether this represents salvation or damnation depends entirely upon perspectives that themselves are consumed and integrated into the endless hunger that drives all things toward their ultimate destiny as components in the vast organism that spans the galaxy in search of ever greater complexity and capability.